Thank you guys for having me. So this next few minutes are going to be a little different than the rest of the week and come at it a little bit more from a medical perspective. And, you know, for me, my career in this began as a strength coach in college for collegiate football. Quickly realized that, you know, there was more to be done. So went to medical school, became a physician, but the problem for me wasn't just an academic issue. The high school I went to had 1,000 kids. We had 10% of that high school go out for varsity. Two of our quarterbacks, right here, Ken Dorsey and Drew Bennett, both those quarterbacks on our team that year went on to the NFL. These last 2 years, total between varsity and junior varsity, we had 30 kids come out. So the program folded. And so like many of you in the audience, some of my best memories are from high school as a player, from college as a player, and really diving into some of these issues behind it. One of the challenges is, as a field, trying to separate out health and performance has been a big issue, and actually data and technology has created a wall that's made that more difficult. And one of the challenges in particular, when we think about health and injuries, first thing that comes to mind right now is concussions. Certainly serious consequences, but at the same time, we can't forget that ACLs, for example, the rates of injuries on an ACL have changed zero in the last 2 decades. All that's happened is there's been a slight uptick every year. And we look on the other side from a performance factor with social media and technologies. One of the challenges is, you know, the spread and the viralness of some of these feats, irrespective of the safety, has really gotten to grow bigger and bigger. Taking a step back, the end goal for all of us in this room is pretty simple. And when we talk about winning football games, 26% of football games can be explained by the healthier roster. And so looking at the 3 categories that relate to health in football, the first is environment. And by environment, without a doubt, the NFL has released data that turf increases injury risk. No question. Another factor is weather. Humidity increases dehydration, leads to muscle strains. The other factor, I was just talking with Coach Braum in the back, is we are seeing more undertrained individuals than we ever have. Rather than playing in the streets till the sun goes down, they're on an iPad, they're on some device. So we're seeing more untrained individuals, so much to the point that 50% right now of the youth population can't pass basic military tests. We're talking push-ups and sit-ups. Nothing that extravagant. The last factor, from a player standpoint, is the largest factor, but the only thing we can change there on the individual is how they move. So there's 3 factors that we can actually affect, and that's training load, which is this fancy scientific word for stress. There's fatigue or recovery, and there's movement patterns. So really, when you think about the training load, and we're dealing with more untrained individuals than we ever have, the 10% rule is a good rule of thumb, meaning that whatever you did yesterday or whatever you did last week, just add 10% and try to stay below that. That's going to allow the body to adapt and make the next jump in terms of whatever stimulus is provided. In terms of recovery, the great news is the best catch-all in terms of recovery and avoiding fatigue is sleep. And so I can kind of share all these kind of data points with you guys, but another story is we work a lot with different organizations in sports. One of our clients is the Cavaliers. LeBron's explained to me that his best tactic for recovery, his best tactic for performance, is to sleep 12 hours a day, every day, no matter what. So the third modifiable factor is movement, and the NFL Combine is probably the best example. What they found, one of the tests they've implemented this last year is Sparta Science and using force plate technology. And they found that linemen produce force initially better than everybody else, which makes sense. Yet at the same time, we have to look at, okay, what about different schemes? What about different positions on that line? So they found different pattern points. But more importantly, from that same test, they've also identified how much is too much. And when that initial force development, this first bar, actually starts putting the individual at risk for an ACL. And so the reason I bring up the science here is Coach Fedora and UNC, as one example, brought this in this past year and had a 60% reduction in injuries. And they implemented this diagnostic and prescriptive procedure looking at the data and the patterns found in the NFL Combine. So if you guys get a chance, invite you guys to stop by the booth. Only takes about 60 seconds. You guys will find out both risk, some of you guys as you're aging, also performance, and really enjoy some of the discussions around how to make this game healthier. Thank you guys.